Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Soapbox. Today we are here with Richard O'Connor, the CEO of B2B Marketing, and we're going to be talking all things B2B marketing, but specifically around sales and marketing alignment, raising the value of the B2B marketeer. So Richard, do you want to do a quick introduction?
Sure, yeah. As you say, I run B2B Marketing. I've been at the business for, getting on for 2.5 years. My background is actually, large corporates, FTSE 100, FTSE 250, and my background is actually sales, although I've run marketing in various functions over the years.
So you come from the dark side.
I do come from the dark side, and arguably the most challenging side of the commercial arm at the moment.
Yeah.
But it's been a wonderful 2.5 years at B2B Marketing. And just for those who don't know us, we run conferences, Ignite, the ABM conference, and we have our global platform, community platform for B2B marketers called Propolis.
Excellent. Graham, do you want to do a quick?
Yeah, hi, I'm Graham. I'm one of the directors here at Ice Blue Sky. I head up business creation, and that's not only business creation for Ice Blue Sky, but that's also trying to create that business for the clients that we serve, and all around the world of account-based marketing, leading demand generation and sales enablement. So we're really pleased to have Richard here today. And we're a new member of Propolis as well, so we're really pleased to be the new kids on the block.
We're delighted to have you.
So
but we don't sing. Well, we do, but not in the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm Charlotte, the Chief Exec of Ice Blue Sky. So now we have a lot to talk about today, but if our previous phone call was anything to go by, I think it's going to get quite lively in a good way. So obviously in B2B marketing, one of the topics that I know is a hot topic is the commercial marketeer. So helping, and as I was previously client side for quite a few years, and I think it's something that a lot of marketeers need help and guidance on, is how to be more relevant, how to be more commercial. And then we've got, and the other thing that we want to talk about is the role of the CRO. I think we all sort of hoped it would be one thing, but it appears to be evolving into something else. So, but yeah, tell us a little bit about the commercial marketeer.
Well, sure. I mean, this is a theme that has really, with the genesis and has emerged from our membership. We've obviously been running the Ignite conference, the ABM conference, we do the B2B Marketing Awards. So we're having conversations all the time with marketers, and we're having conversations almost on a day-to-day basis in Propolis. And one of the things that has just I think it's always been there, but it's really becoming more prominent, partly because of the rise of the CRO, but partly because in driving growth, sales is not quite as effective as it used to be, and people are looking more towards marketing. So you've got these sort of slightly dissonant, contradictory things going on within marketing. And what we found is that as marketing has got more complex, there's more technology involved, you've got the advent of AI, we're finding that marketers have almost, in some cases, not in every case, but in some cases, pigeonholed themselves in doing marcoms. And actually what's interesting, what's emerged, is they're also doing a lot of project management.
Yeah, that's a huge part of
it
marketing.
It really is. And, managing technology, managing transformation, managing process improvement. And that's come at the cost of being connected to strategy, being a key voice on the senior leadership team or the board, in some cases financial literacy, and those bits, being a key part of the three legs of the stool in go-to-market, sales, product, marketing, but marketing almost being the marcoms campaign side of go-to-market, when it's actually they're a strategic partner. So I think there's all of these things going on, but it's led to marketers perhaps compromising a little bit on their strategic and commercial value. Definitely,
and it's something we see a lot as an agency, because they're often not given the time and the space to think strategically, because and like you say, you were referring to there, that proliferation of channels and technology and all those tactical things that they have, like you say, have to project manage. Where is the space to sit down and objectively look at what you're trying to achieve and analysing what you've achieved and then what that means for what you do next. It's a big deal for people, and I think as well, in the tech sector where we work, you have the added pressure of that quarter by quarter performance, and when you're knee deep in that, and that's what you are measured on and compensated on, being able to step back and look at that strategy, I think, but it's just so important for the value of who those people are.
But it's holistic, isn't it? Because, you know, we spoke about in the intro here about the marketing and sales alignment and enabling, if we're going to put a term on it, the commercial marketeer to almost understand, to be involved and influencing the sales proposition. We sometimes call it, Richard, it's like you're running a 400-metre race, and your first 300 metres you can run exceptionally well. But if your final 100 metres is not as good as it should be, your campaigns fail. They'll fall short. You won't get that engagement. All the upstream work that you've done and the budget that you've spent to get to that point of execution, and we've seen it, haven't we, time and time again, where we've just been involved in that marketing, and now more and more we're now getting involved in that marketing and sales. And when you're influencing what I sometimes call the final mile,
sure,
yeah, well, that final 100 metres, when you're influencing that and it's all comes together, that's when you truly see success. And I think you're right. I don't think the modern day marketeer is getting the time, maybe necessarily, to have that time to breathe, to be with sales, and to be inclusive in that. And you know, there's some of the things that we see. And it's, to me, it's just like, it's common sense. You've come from sales. I'm very much sales orientated. So to me, it's common sense.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I guess it poses the question, whose problem is it?
Yeah.
Because it's not actually, I don't think it's the marketer's problem, and I don't think it's actually the CRO's problem. It is a strategic problem. It's the board's problem, because the organisation is typically set up with sales and marketing, and in some ways having those two different departments is problematic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you immediately have people with often slightly different objectives, slightly misaligned on the overall goal, not necessarily understanding the overall goal and the overarching strategy.
Yeah.
And actually those two, I mean, if you could change anything and go back, I don't know, 100 years, you probably wouldn't call them sales and marketing. You might call it, I think that's where the CROs come from. It's around growth, isn't it? Which makes a lot of sense, but...
It does, and I think, you know, Gartner have been trying to coin it as revenue enablement, which I think is a great term. It's one that we use, but it's not widely understood yet, and will it be? Because again, you run into that sticky situation around, you've got the word revenue in there, so everybody immediately goes sales, whereas you know, when we spoke previously about the CRO role, you know, I think we all hoped that would be that connection, but in reality it's turned into another sales role.
Yeah, I think in our experience, some of our members in some of our organisations, you know, members of Propolis, it does work. And when the CRO has a mechanism for making sure that there are joint objectives, OKRs. I mean, we're rolling out OKRs at B2B Marketing, and I've never seen the business more connected and more galvanised behind a common goal, which is great. So we obviously try to practice what we preach. But I think when you get those common objectives, and actually both teams' goal is revenue, rather than, you know, marketing being MQLs or brand, or, you know, the ultimate goal is you're defined and your accountability is for revenue. I think that brings it together. I think you're right, though. What it has done in a lot of organisations is given sales even more power. Yes. Because they're talking to the customer, because they often, sadly, speak the language of finance or the CEO. Yeah. They've got a better understanding of strategy, and it gives them more of a voice at the top table, and marginalises marketing even further. Even more, and I think that's the unintended, but a consequence that has happened.
Yeah, but you say that, and I accept that. I think we were saying, weren't we, just a moment ago, about how difficult sales is becoming. And doesn't marketing now hold some really great technologies in the tech stack to really accelerate that engagement of the possibility of sales being able to have those early stage conversations? And I think sometimes that's forgotten. And I think sometimes it's like salespeople still need to have those tools, you know, to get that engagement, to get a response, to get that form filled, to get a little bit of insight into what the customer's truly looking for. And I think that sits with marketing, and marketing have those abilities to be able to give that to sales.
I think it does, but I think what often doesn't happen, and this is behind that comment that I put on the site earlier, what doesn't happen is those goals are not aligned to the strategic goals of the organisation, which aligns obviously to the OKRs that you mentioned. Because most senior leadership teams at large companies have 5 or so key metrics that they're focused on. And the role of whoever the marketing leader is to translate the marketing speak into those 5 key metrics and not talk about anything else. No one below the CMO should be interested in marketing metrics or channels or anything. It should be, what are they reporting up to those 5 KPIs, for example?
We should talk more often. I love this conversation. I could not agree more.
I'm so passionate about this.
It's a key principle of what we're talking about and how we're engaging with customers. And we started the conversation about the marketeer and the role of the CRO. The CRO is here to stay. I don't think we're ever going to see the CRO disappear. But it was interesting, Richard, a point you just made there about what really does the structure need to look like for marketing and sales to really prosper. Yeah. And in my mind, I was thinking to myself, well, it almost needs its own tier to be able to breathe, to be able to sort of create those strategies. And it's almost like you then need the subset of all the different people that need to do all the different things sitting underneath that. Yeah. So you've got board, and then you've got a subset of almost like commercial success direct. I don't know what it's going to be called. I'm sure somebody far more qualified out there will make a title up. But it's almost like that's where they need to sit. And then the operation can then deliver on, maybe we're talking about those accounts, they can deliver on that. But is there a new sort of stream of responsibility that needs to sit within businesses?
Yes, absolutely. And I don't think it's the CRO per se. It is the structure that's put in underneath. Yeah. It's the same principle of putting in Salesforce and not looking at ways of working. You put in the technology and hope it's going to work. It never solves anything. It causes more problems. People don't change the way they work. If you put a CRO into an organisation and then don't change all of the ways of working and practices and habits and behaviours underneath, it's not going to work.
No, you're right.
No.
Clearly, so you're exactly right. What's the platform? What's the change management that goes underneath that to make sure that sales and marketing are working together? Yeah. And it doesn't come at the cost of marketing. And I would say, I don't want to bash sales because it sounds like we're bashing sales. It's not the case at all. It is the most difficult role.
It is.
It's more difficult than it's ever been. Yeah. You can't call anyone anymore. You can't WhatsApp anyone because it's too intrusive. LinkedIn is just awash with basically cold calling that's sits in front of GDPR, so it's all right. It's awful. How do you engage with customers? Yeah, it's as a salesperson? So hard. But so it's not about bashing sales, but it is about not promoting sales over marketing. Yeah. One little interesting point, this is embargoed, so I'm being slightly naughty here, but we run a community index on Propolis, which is a set of benchmarks of data. We launched it last year. We're just about to do our first year-on-year metrics. Oh, okay. And one stat, which I think is really fascinating, is that the amount of revenue that marketing is responsible for, it's indicative. We haven't quite finished the numbers, but it's indicating that the amount of revenue that marketing is directly responsible for, has grown year on year. Yeah. Which I think says a lot.
It does. It does say a lot. And I think as well, marketeers, we do have a responsibility to learn the language of the board, and I think and to sort of participate in sales. I don't think marketing should shy away from even basic things like going to a sales meeting, or like the weekly sales meeting, or go to a customer meeting, or it's easy, and learn that language, learn how to speak to the board, have that confidence. And I think for someone like B2B marketing, that's a great role, isn't it? And I know a lot of your content works to achieve that.
We are trying to champion the commercial marketer because we firmly believe that B2B marketing and B2B marketers are really the engine room.
They are.
And they're the ones 100%. That are going to make sales more successful. And it's not about making sales. They're the ones that are going to help drive growth. Yeah. See, we even slip into that language.
I know.
Yeah,
it's ingrained in us,
isn't
it?
It really is ingrained.
Yeah. You have to identify, actually, fundamentally, sales do want that help. Because we all know in sales, the buck stops with you. If you don't get that phone call, if you don't get that appointment, if a tender goes out and you're not part of that first process, then the spotlight is on sales. And it's almost like, sales need that. They're saying, give me the tools. How are you going to help me? How are you going to help me get down that final mile? And it's an interesting question for you, Richard. At some point, does B2B marketing cross that divide, and do you bring in the sales conversation and the sales excellence? And is that part of the evolution? I mean, I don't want to. I'm not putting words in your mouth here. But it's interesting when you talk about it, and it's a natural conversation to have from your perspective into that sector.
I mean, your lead is in ABM, and ABM is not about marketing alone. It is about sales and marketing, it's about growth.
Yeah.
And you can't do it just with marketing. It doesn't work.
No.
So the answer to your question is yes, and it's a live conversation. We run an ABM conference. It's been pretty much 100% for marketers, and now I think we discussed this briefly, that AI has breathed new life into ABM.
Yeah.
And we're now looking at how can, because it makes it more accessible to more businesses. We are looking at how do we incorporate sales into the conversation, because almost we run the risk of as an organisation of championing one side of the story,
almost isolating yourself.
Yeah, exactly. By solving one problem, we create another one. So yes, you're right. The challenge is unless particularly with a conference, just for interest, typically unless you go to a conference when it's more than 30% of your role. Because we'd like to get CFOs along to the conference to hear how ABM, the business case for ABM, but it's a little bit more difficult. But sales is getting to that almost that 30% point.
Yeah, that tipping point.
And that would be really exciting, because there's a lot of education needed in the sales side about ABM, because this is why we brought sales enablement as part of our offering, because as you were talking about, the final 100 metres often fell down, not because they weren't capable, but because there just wasn't an understanding of what do you do when you have ABM engagement. When ABM is being really successful, then what? And how do you continue that consistently into the sales conversation? I always say one of the key components of ABM is that marketing stays involved a lot longer and sales has to get involved a lot earlier and a lot more organically than that kind of traditional lead handover. So to hear that sales are going to be part of that and exposed to that, I think is only going to help accelerate that.
Yeah, and they need marketing more than ever.
They do.
More than ever. Because just getting in front of a customer, just having a conversation, it's just so much more difficult than it's been.
It is.
Absolutely. And I was talking to a client about it, and I was talking to our team about it actually this week. And we're doing a great campaign to be released in the next few weeks. And I'll very basically, we're sending 200 trees out into the market. And there's a whole back communication strategy around what goes on before that and when the trees are sent out. But the sales team, it's all about, the follow-up is about not what they sell or the product, it's actually phoning up about the welfare of the tree. It's slightly diffusing it away from the campaign and what the core sales message is, but the relevancy of the conversation is that's going to allow me to just
because it's about sustainability.
So they're going to have a minute's conversation where they're not going to talk about what they do and what they're selling, but it's getting to that midpoint and just say, oh look, I don't know whether you're interested, but and you're right, that's where sales need the support of marketing to be
to start that conversation.
To be inquisitive about how do we start that relationship, and I think it's ever so important.
And you've got that double-edged sword, because you need creativity, obviously, to cut through and get people's attention. But then once you do get their attention, you have such a short amount of time to get across your credibility to say, I'm worth a conversation. And I don't think sales can do that on their own. How could you can't scale that through one-to-ones. And like you say, that's why they really need marketing. Everyone needs each other. And I think if we could wave a magic wand, like you said, we would do it all very differently.
We would do it differently. I think we've created a 50-year problem.
Yeah.
But what are the practical things that marketers can do? And I don't think they require long-term transformation. They're not complex, actually.
No.
One of them, and you made, I think, a brilliant point, go and see customers, join sales calls, be in contact with our end users, understand what their pains, gains, jobs to be done are.
Yeah.
Because at best, salespeople will bring that information back and share that with marketing. At worst, they will hide behind the customer and say, well, no, it's not working because the customer said that. I think marketing have almost a responsibility to get in front of customers, because how can you attune your messaging? How can you understand what's going to resonate and cut through if you don't actually listen to the voice of the customer directly? Yeah,
exactly. And if you're just reliant on secondhand information and assumptions and just longer term assumptions about a particular market, because if you can get someone's attention, so let's say you're targeting a CIO, just to harken back to our earlier conversation, you're targeting a CIO, marketing has to be able to tap into the challenges that CIO is facing, and in a context that relates to their organisation specifically. If you go into generically, it just, the whole point gets lost. Whereas if you can go in and say, well, we know that you, this is what's going on in the market, but actually for you specifically in that organisation, we believe that's exhibiting itself in this way. And then you tailor the conversation to that. But you can't know that unless you're regularly talking to the market, to customers.
No.
Yeah, fully agree. I mean, I guess another thing that we can do, we've discussed this as well, is understand the metrics that the CFO, the CEO are measuring performance by. Mm-hmm. It's not a difficult thing, but I think there's a sort of...
It's a fearful thing.
There's people, often marketers are intimidated by those things and hide behind MQLs and SQLs and the serious decisions waterfall and jargon. Yeah. And people outside of that, as you said, don't care. They do not care.
They don't.
What's the revenue? What's our retention rate? What's our subscription business, annual recurring revenue, net revenue retention? All of those metrics. Understand them. Yeah. Talk about them, own them. Yeah, that is a very simple way to build credibility in the organisation. It doesn't 100%. Cost anything. It's just a choice. It's where you choose to spend your time.
It so is, isn't it? And it's also, I think, aligning your marketing metrics to those things. Spend time not trying to work out how to report MQLs. Once you've got a basic process in place, that job is done. But work out how to connect to those MQLs to revenue and to pipeline generation, because that's what's going to keep you at the table, and that's what's going to demonstrate your value.
We spoke about it earlier, didn't we? And we've had that sort of conversation around AI. I think we've done very well actually to keep off the subject.
Are we the only people not talking about it?
Everywhere you go. But we were talking earlier on a previous podcast about cross-sell, upsell, retention of business, and that's where AI is really going to start to be able to get into data. It's going to understand the nuances around those customers, where those best opportunities are. And, as we've identified, that's what's going to really support the marketeers. Because there was one word that we used this morning, wasn't it? And it was around the word certainty. If I'm spending my marketing dollar, am I talking to the right people about the right things to create the right possibility for my business?
At the right time.
At the right time. And I think that's what marketeers are going, with this evolution of AI, I think that's what's going to help marketeers and ultimately help sales. Yeah. Because they're actually focusing themselves on the right businesses to talk to.
Yeah, I fully agree. And another thing is we've had a conversation this week, is making sure that the targets for marketing aren't disassociated to the actual revenue outcome. Live example. We probably been a bit indiscreet here, but we sat in a meeting last week, and we're declaring victory on hitting a lead target for one of our products, and we've got sales in the same meeting because we have a joint meeting. And sales are saying, but I haven't had any meetings. I haven't got in front of any customers. So on the one hand, it's very easy for marketing to go in isolation, declare victory. Brilliant, we've hit a lead target, fantastic. But
we've done our job.
But hold on a minute, there's nothing in the pipeline. And it wasn't that bad. But,
no,
but the point is, one side can declare victory and the other side doesn't feel like they're winning. And I think that's an age old problem.
It's a scary thing, isn't it, for marketeers to hang their hat on the revenue and the pipeline contribution, because it's hard to track, and often you get that handbags at dawn with sales saying it was the sales led, that it wasn't influenced at all by marketing, and obviously marketing saying the other way around. And I think that if people need to have that understanding of making sure that they know that marketing have contributed to that revenue. And like you say, that should be the sign of success. MQLs are a good marketing metric, but they're not a good board metric.
That's right. And what a waste of time. And I know we need to do it, and I know it's important, but the whole principle of sales and marketing alignment just should be consigned to history. Yeah. Because it's all about internal politics. It's all about internal processes. It's the wrong end of the telescope. We should be talking about the buyer and how we can make the buyer experience better, and how we can enable buyers.
Because we haven't even touched on customer success, have we?
And the broadness. I mean, we talk about it, don't we, from time to time, and the broadness of the people that you actually now have to talk to in different ways. I always have this house in sort of view that one day all those people in the DMU are all going to be in one room, and the first company that they're going to be talking about is the one we've helped market, and that's what you believe in. But there's so many more people to engage with, which in itself is a massive challenge for marketing.
Yeah.
So we're pretty much out of time, unfortunately, because I could talk about this for hours.
Can we do a part two?
Do a part two.
We should do a part two.
Yeah, but I thought it would be good just to recap, kind of, for the marketeers watching this. What are the things you need to do? So I think one of them is obviously aligning how you speak to how the board speaks, and feed down from those KPIs into your marketing metrics, not the other way around.
Marketing, joining meetings as regularly as is appropriate, as is pragmatic.
Yes.
You're not going to come on every meeting, but set a target. Is it 2, 3, 4 meetings per month?
Yeah, absolutely. And talking to existing customers as well. Surprising to me sometimes how much marketeers don't do that. And again, it's a time issue, I think.
And I think my takeaway, but I was already preaching this, is get everybody in the room.
Yeah.
Get sales marketing, get everybody in the room, and on a regular basis to just talk about it. Where are we going with this?
Yeah, definitely.
And to me, we see that, and that's success. And you'll get success if you do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Wise words.
Great.
Wise words.
Well, thanks for joining us,
Thanks, Richard. Really enjoyed it.
Really enjoyed
We'll
it.
definitely have to
That
do
went
this
quickly.
again. Yeah, it did go really quickly, didn't
really
it?
good.
Well, thanks very much, and we'll see you next time.